extraordinary. Now there's a word you don't use lightly. But you see, extraordinary is all around us. It's life-changing, reviving a pulse on your first day of training. It's knowing that here, you matter. You can achieve whatever you want to, conquer heights, imagine sights others can't see. It's that indescribable feeling that tells you, here is where I'm meant to be. So what are you waiting for? With us behind you, an opportunity ahead, you're unstoppable. It's time to find your extraordinary.
Fantastic, thank you. So here's a little bit about me, so you've got an idea of my background. I'm a senior marketing lecturer at the University of Hull Business School, and I'm also Strategic Partnership Director, which means I work really closely with HKU Space. I specialize in digital marketing and social media, so if you study with us, you're likely to be on a module that I will be running, and you get the opportunity to work with me as well. Now, apart from my career in academia, I've got a background as a professional marketer with over 20 years experience working with all sorts of organizations around the world. And I've worked with global businesses at very senior levels. Also, my research interests are, of course, digital marketing, but it also spills into consumer behavior and place marketing. Okay. So a little bit about Hull. Now, Hull is one of the oldest universities in the UK. We've been changing lives for over 100 years, and we're not stopping. We're shaping a fairer, brighter, carbon neutral future for all. And you'll be able to see what we do runs all the way through all of our courses. We're really focused on the future. The next slide talks a little bit about Hull University and how we actually deliver some of our teaching. In the UK, universities are ranked for their teaching quality, and Hull, I'm pleased to say, has been ranked gold at the Teaching Excellence Framework, which is called the TEF. This is the highest achievement independently awarded by the UK Office for Students. It uses benchmark data so it compares us against other universities. And our student experience and outcomes are ranked as outstanding. And that puts us in top 20% out of 228 UK higher education institutions. The TEF covers everything when it comes to education and teaching. So it looks at our teaching quality. So that's what you're being delivered, the outcomes, which is what do you know at the end of your course, and the overall learning environment. And for those of you that have been to HKU Space, it's a fabulous learning environment. So hopefully we'll look forward to seeing you there. Now, a key thing that we do at Hull University and HKU Space is we focus on you as a future professional. So we know you're thinking about different study modes and different ways of studying different places. But when you're looking for a program considering in marketing or marketing and management, you need to be looking at a curriculum that's up to date, so that is giving you the latest information in the field. That you've got expert teaching staff, so people with experience in academia and also in business, that is accredited and globally accredited and also by the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and that gets you career ready. You know, we're focused on you as a future professional. We want to give you the skills, the experience and the knowledge to be able to get the careers that you're really looking for. And now, perhaps most importantly, we have something called ABL, and it's unique to Hull University Business School, and it means authentic business learning. And that means that we teach you and we actually train you and we assess you in the way that if you were doing that job, you were going to be assessed in the same way. So you'll know that you'll be confident in interviews when you're going for future careers. Next slide. And we call that ABL. So that makes it very different. And the next slide talks a little bit more about that as well. And we say we want you to be business ready graduates. And actually, we treat you as future professionals from the first day that we see you. And we're the birthplace of authentic business learning. And it includes an innovative teaching, embedding employability skills. The assessments that we have, I've already said, are going to be like the things you would be doing in the role. We've got the professional accreditations which you need, and we've got very deep industry links around the whole world as well. And that once you graduated from Hull and HKU Space, you can join our alumni and you can network with people in pretty much every country you can imagine. Okay, next slide. A key thing about the programs which that we're talking about today, before I launch into some of the trends and artificial intelligence, is you're looking at where do you want to work in the future. Now, in marketing, there is a lot of what we call skills gaps. And what that actually means is there's a gap between what organizations want and the skills that are available to them. So if you're thinking about a career in marketing, and you are going to be entering an area that's probably going to have skills gaps for the next 10 years. So there's plenty of roles available. And you can see just here, just some of the things. Analytics is one of the biggest skills gaps. And we're pleased to know that when you look at our program, we've added some new marketing analytics modules as well, being a 37% gap between what organizations want and what they've got. But you can see right across marketing, mobile marketing, email, content creation, and social media, there's skills gaps, talent gaps that organizations are looking to fill. My next slide talks a bit about what you'll study. So rather than just the specific modules, this talks about how we put together those modules. So we've got cutting edge industry-led modules. We work with organizations to develop them. We are focusing on your future careers, closing the skills gaps, which I've talked about already. And AI and digital, we're going to be talking about it today, but not a day goes by without somebody asking me about what's the impact of artificial intelligence. And we'll be embedding those skills within the modules that you'll be taking on this program. We're a CIM gateway institution, and Chartered Institute of Marketing is the globally recognized professional body for marketeers. And you'll know that your course has been accredited by the CIM. And if you want to take professional courses in the future, then you'll know that you're going to be able to shortcut those because you'll be able to get some credits against the future education. And we also have guest speakers as well. We try and do that across all of our programs. Okay, the next slide has got the actual modules. I'm not going to go into these in too much depth because I know that there are other videos which my colleagues have gone through, but I just thought it gives you a highlight. In terms of marketing, we've got a straight core marketing program, or we've got a marketing and management program as well. And you can see I've highlighted here in bold what are the new modules that we're bringing. So if you look at marketing, for example, we embed all of the key skills that you need in marketing, but we've added into there marketing, data and analytics. We've got services marketing and CX, which is customer experience, and also research and consultancy skills. So you've got your digital marketing and social media, international marketing and strategic marketing also. But you can see it's a really up-to-date program. Then on the right-hand side, I've got marketing and management. And the key changes here is we've brought in some business strategies and some research consultancy skills as well. But this program is more if you are not sure what you want to do, if you're interested in marketing and or management, it gives you a grounding of both. But you can see how much more specific a single honors in marketing will be in giving you the skills that you need for the future. So those are the outline programs. We're very future orientated. That's a key thing about these programs. The modules are constantly being updated. We want to ensure that you leave this degree program with all of the skills you need for the future. So that's why you've seen in those last module lists that you've got analytics and digital marketing, social media, digital transformation and sustainable innovation all embedded into the programs. And the next slide just talks a little bit about some of the jobs that our previous graduates have been going into. So we've got a very good, strong history of employability on our programs, but you can just see there some of the key things which our graduates have gone on to do. And I've met many of those graduates in Hong Kong, both teaching them and also at graduation as well. But you can see their digital marketing, data analysts, marketing in general, communications, project managers, and so on. So there's a really good broad spectrum of jobs which they've gone into afterwards. Okay, so that's a little bit about Hull and a little bit about our programs. There's more videos which you can watch if you want some more in-depth information, and I also can answer any questions which you have. So I'm going to move on to predictions and talk a bit about AI. The key thing that I would be saying to you and to organizations as well is we need to be expecting disruption now at all times. We're seeing change at a pace that we've barely seen before, and attackers to organizations are on the prowl. So that's why businesses are looking for entrepreneurial people with technology skills to be able to join them to help them in this very changing environment. Okay. I'm going to start off with talking about AI and marketing. So artificial intelligence and marketing. Now, what's all the fuss about? AI, first of all, is not new. We're learning more about it now. We're hearing more about AI than we ever have done in the past. But we've been using it in marketing for over a decade in media analysis, research and development, and analyzing big data sets. But the prompt-based AI or generative AI, things like ChatGPT and the others which exist, like Google as well, and Bard, um, is relatively new. That idea that it's democratized because everybody can use it. But I know I've been working with IBM and their Watson prompt-based product for over 15 years. So this generative AI, which is what they call that text-based, prompt-based AI, is grabbing the headlines. And it tends to focus on things like content generation. But what you're going to see through this short talk today is that the real potential in AI is actually in areas like predictive analytics for data-driven marketing, understanding what people are going to do in the future. My next slide talks a little bit about overview. I always like to give some data, some information, some statistics. I'm also going to share with you some of the research that we've been doing as well at the University of Hull. So 90% of all businesses are saying AI is going to change their organization. So they recognize that. 43% have already fully integrated AI product or service changes. So they've changed the way they're operating significantly by using artificial intelligence. 88% say they're going to spend more money in this area in the future. Now, the truth is that it's unlikely that there are any marketeers that are not using AI because it's embedded in so many of the day-to-day tools which they are using, but they don't know that it's actually there. So even if you're using YouTube and you're developing content and you're using YouTube to put subtitles on, that's done through artificial intelligence. So even marketers that say, we're not using AI are probably doing it, but without them knowing it. Okay, my next slide talks a bit about CEOs, so that's Chief Executive Officers. Those are the people at the very top of organizations. And so at EY, that's Ernst & Young, big global consultancy organization, and ran a survey of 1,200 chief executive officers. And basically what they said is they mainly think that AI is a source for good. So we hear the scare stories, but they think it's a source for good. And they believe 66% that actually new roles working with AI will counterbalance some of those roles which are lost. Because you hear people being very concerned about will AI take my job? But they don't believe that it is. Their bigger concerns are about brand safety, which I'll touch on today, privacy, and the truth, because there's so much misinformation and which can be spread through AI, particularly through things like hallucinations, when AI makes things up because it doesn't have the information that it really needs and it doesn't have the common sense that we do as human beings. So I asked the question recently at a meeting. So this is a number of marketeers that I was presenting to. And I said, are you using AI for marketing? So you can see pretty much everyone, apart from a small percentage there, have got no, and which you can see, but the majority are using it. Not too many extensively, but marketers are saying, yeah, we're using it at the moment. Now I'm going to go on to talking a little bit about what marketers are using it for at the moment. So what I have on the left-hand side, I've got what a marketer is using it for now. And this comes from a WARC, which is the World Advertising Research Center. It's a fabulous resource which you get access to and when you study with us. They've got a big marketers toolkit survey for the next year. And they said, so what are marketers saying they're using it for? They're using it large language models, which is again like ChatGPT. They're creating content. Now, I don't know if you know that phrase, content, but content is the videos that you see, the words that you will read, maybe in social media, maybe on websites or blogs. Videos, I've said already, haven't I? Images as well. This is all content. And without content, there's nothing on the web. There's nothing in social media. And so they're using it for content creation. Chatbots, so that's when we go in and we get answers on a chat rather than waiting to speak to people. Writing copy, so they're writing articles, writing text for advertising. creating strategy. Some marketers are using it to create strategy, and then video editing as well. Now, on the right-hand side, I've got a list here of really what marketers should be using it for. And this is a big eye-opener. They're not using it for the things which AI is actually the best at. Those things on the left-hand side, humans are really good at doing. The stuff on the right-hand side are the things that humans are not very good at doing and what marketers should be using it for. And this is a bit of a challenge for marketers in the future. They should be using it for audience segmentation. So that's understanding different groups of audiences and understanding what products they want, what services they want, and why. They should be measuring their key performance indicators. They should be enhancing their customer relationship management, so how they deal with people. They should be getting new insights. They should be analyzing their data that they have, because we're not great at this because it's quite hard and time consuming. So this idea of predictive analytics is when you start to predict what's going to happen based on data sets which you have. They should be modeling. So perhaps if you're launching a new product, how much is it going to sell? Where is it going to sell? What kind of customers are going to buy it? Correlation testing, so taking in new sets of data and seeing where linkages exist. And of course, this phrase, big data. And big data isn't a scary thing. It really means that for marketers, they should be adding more sets of data to what they're doing. So we've got a gap here between what marketers are using it for and what they should. And here's an example. I know that many of you may have studied marketing already, and don't worry if you haven't, because we can take you through all of the key things that you really need. But this is about segmentation. And quite often you'll hear people say, oh, I segment by age, by gender. So 25 to 45-year-olds, females that live in Hong Kong. And that doesn't tell you anything about an audience. You need all of this kind of information. Where does she shop? What does she care about? Who influences her online? Who are the influencers? Where else does she go? What does she do with her time? What are the key issues in her life? These are the kind of data information that we want, and AI is really good at dealing with. My next slide also I did some research by looking online of what actually marketers are doing with AI. So if we just click it again, we'll see a list coming up. So this site here says the best 40 AI tools for marketing. And I can tell you now, that 40, there isn't a single tool on that list that deals with data and data analytics. But that is what will give big opportunities and for marketeers. It basically covers those 40: chat engines, copywriting, image creation, videos, and productivity, which are all things which humans do really well, but they're not telling you anything about what actually humans don't do very well. Now, my next slide's got it's a Venn diagram. All right, so you'll know where we have circles that overlap or that are inside each other, and that's called a Venn diagram. And just a little bit of information for you. And the Venn diagram was actually created at the University of Hull. It's a Hull-based, it was a Professor Venn who actually came from Hull and created the Venn diagram. So you'll know something about Hull without you knowing it or thinking about it. So here, AI is the big blue circle here. And then what we have is we've got NLP, which is that the language, natural language programming, learning, like ChatGPT. That's the AI which most people talk about, just that little reddish circle there. On the left-hand side, you've got machine learning and deep learning, and that's where the data analytics come from. So if you're a marketer and you're only using the NLP, you're missing out on really deep learning and the overlaps that come from it. And that's the big challenge for marketeers in the future. Now, my next slide is we asked marketers, we said, what's the best thing about AI in marketing? And here's the list. I went through all of the feedback and I've got it down to this short list. They say it's time saving. It can speed up tasks that kind of take a lot of time. It can help them monitor customers on a website, which is great. You know, where are they going? What are they doing? If they click on here, how many of them go through to there and why? Those kind of questions and answers which they're looking for. It can automate routine tasks that distract them from doing the creative things that marketeers love. It can summarize complex information, so it can give them an overall summary of the key things. It can do practical tasks with definite answers. That's when it's very good AI. When you've got a definite answer, AI can be really good. If you've got 4 or 5 answers, even models like ChatGPT are not great to go and get your answer. You're best speaking to your lecturers for those kind of things. But things like Grammarly, which is just the grammar, is it correct or not? They're pretty good at that. And so I've got data analysis, customer communications, and also people say things they haven't used it for yet. So they're recognizing there's more for them to do. Okay. Now, I thought I'd just share with you this model. This model here comes from Google, and Google created this particularly for what is it, for YouTube. And what they say is that the content that we create as marketers generally fills in 3 different areas. Hygiene, which basically is the always on content that's designed for your audience. So if I was a retailer, it would be, what time are you open? Have you got any stock? If I'm coming in a car, can I park nearby? Is there a train station nearby? All these kind of general, straightforward questions. Hub is regularly push content that we would be sending. So again, if I was a retailer, it might be about this promotion's on. Why don't you try this product? Now, the hero are the big creative ideas, the big wow things that make you remember and build that brand. Now, effectively, when it comes to AI and creating content, AI is brilliant at the hygiene thing, particularly with chatbots. Because if you just want to know what time a store is open, that kind of information you want quickly, and AI can do really well. The hero content, not great at all. That's when it needs creative ideas from humans. So I thought I'd tell you a little about things to be aware of, beware. And I was reading something else today, which I found, really interesting. AI is not always correct. So if you're using chat-based AI language models, it's not always right. There's misinformation there. We've got many examples of that. So for example, if you ask AI, and what's the quickest time to walk across the channel, which is the sea between the UK and France, it will give you all sorts of incorrect information. Tone of voice. A brand has a personality and a tone of voice, and AI struggles with that, because it will give you different tones of voice at different times. So you don't always sound as if you're being consistent with your audience. You've got to be careful of plagiarism and copyright. So if AI gives you an idea, where did it get it from? Because remember, it doesn't have any new ideas. It's taking information that exists already. Humans are the ones that come up with new creative ideas, but AI is not good at it. So the last thing you want to do if you're an organization is come up with a great creative idea, which you got from AI, and then you find out that you've got a legal case because it's fed you someone else's information. I think I'm going to go through this here. Authenticity. If you're pretending that you're a real person or you're a voice, you're an organization and you're using AI, then that breaks authenticity. And what we keep hearing from consumers is they want authentic relationships with us. And then I think I'll finish off on this one about regulatory issues, about legal issues. I've already talked about plagiarism and copyright, but we've got to be aware of other legal issues which could exist as well. So I'm just going to go on to my next couple of slides. We're going to be finishing off on AI shortly, and I'll talk to you about some of the trends. This is another be aware of things that consumers are saying to us that they believe brands should tell them when they're using AI generated content. 74%, 75% believe that fully automated AI marketing campaigns should be regulated. And then 67% think that AI should not pretend to be human or act as if it's human. And what this is going to mean is there's going to be regulation in this area. That's what we're expecting to see in the future. That companies will be told, if you're using AI, you have to tell people. You can't pretend that it's something else. So I've got another thing about in the next slide, which is about this pixels versus people. Okay, and then I'll go straight on to the next slide and about telling you that when it comes to marketing, we really need to be human. You know, consumers want human connection. That's what we see. Why do people go and do so many live events? Why do they see live acts? Why do they go for experiential things in their lives? Because they like human connection. Think about influencer marketing. Why do you follow people? Why do you believe what they say? Why are you interested? It's because you're following someone because they are human. And influencers have power because of the human connection. Think about authenticity, about being real with organizations, about human empathy. We just can't replace all of that human empathy with AI. And we need to be honest about AI practices. My next slide talks a little bit about something which I call infinite content. And this is a big problem because now organizations can use AI to just create huge amounts of content. And you'll see in my next slide that we are bombarded. So us as consumers, you in Hong Kong, are bombarded with 8,000 pieces of content every day. 8,000, and there is more on the way and with AI content. Content's become this generic term about stuff that we produce online. But what you're going to think of is just because you put something in front of someone, should they care? And we've got a big issue now, and you'll realize this. I want you to think about this as consumers when you're traveling around. How much content from brands are you ignoring? Are you switching off from? And it's because it's harder to get attention because so much is being given to you. And there's a danger that with AI generated content, there'll be even more infinite content. So my next slide just shows you I've been mapping out daily exposure to content with brands. I first started to map this back in 2012, where we used to have about 4,000. And you can see now we're up to 8,000 pieces of content a day from brands being thrusted at you as a consumer. And I always say to organizations, remember, 95% of what people write in social media isn't about brands. If you go and have a look at your own social media content, maybe it's on WeChat, it could be on Snapchat, or it could be on Instagram or WhatsApp, you're not talking about brands most of the time. So as brands and as marketers, we're gate crashing people's conversations. We've got to remember this before we just start to churn out infinite content. So I've got three very short examples for you now, just to show you in AI what brands are doing. So this is Diageo. Diageo are an alcoholic drinks company. And what they have done, and this is very clever, lots of brands are creating what we call walled gardens. So they're using AI, but they're creating a wall around it so that their information doesn't go back into training the artificial intelligence. So they're not giving their ideas away. So what they've done is when they normally launch new brands, new line extension, new packaging, they would create lots of these, but they've been using AI to do it, to kind of speed up the innovation process for packaging design. Now, a lot of these don't look that great, to be honest, but it means they can put things into research really quickly and then get designers to work on them and hone the ideas separately later. My next one is another walled garden example, and this is Estee Lauder, so a big global makeup perfume organization. And what they have done is they called it the math and the magic. Because when it comes to beauty products, it's all about how you feel. It's not about how you think. It's about how you feel when you use something. And they recognize that. So they don't want to lose it completely. So they created a wall garden as well. And they've taken 75 years of everything they've been doing, all of their archives, their fonts, their creatives, their products, things they haven't launched as well. And they've literally thrown that at a big AI model and to see if they can come up with some new opportunities. But they recognize that even with the power of technology, before they test those, it needs the human connection because they're in a human feeling business and rather than something which is artificial. And then my final example here, and this is Cadbury's. I'm sure you're aware of Cadbury's brand. And so this is based in India. So a really nice campaign in India at the time of Diwali, so Festival of Light. And it's a time where there's lots of gift giving. And this is a famous actor in India, and they created something called Not Just a Cadbury Ad. And they did modeling by getting consumer data points, what people watch, what they're interested in. And they created through AI 130,000 unique video ads. And they were able to serve people adverts based on some insight which they had. Now, we couldn't do that. Creating 130 video ads would take us forever. And they actually got a 35% uplift in sales, which is a huge amount. So my final slide next on artificial intelligence as well is this, and I think it's quite an interesting one, that if you're interested in working in advertising agencies or creative agencies, I always say to these people, you have nothing to worry about. And because most clients don't produce very good briefs. And the best agencies in the world will always challenge a client's brief. They will go back to them and say, this is a good brief, but really what you want to be doing is this. AI doesn't do that. AI will take the brief. So if you've got a bad brief and you put it into artificial intelligence, you will get bad ideas from it. Whereas a good agency will change the brief. And that's why I said, when you try to understand the client's brief, if you just do what they say, maybe you create a car that looks like this, but a good agency wouldn't go down that route. Okay, so let me have a look at some trends. I want to leave, Abby, am I right in saying I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end of this? Is that right? Did you hear me, Abby?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Are we leaving time for questions at the end of this presentation?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, no problem. So I'll see how many of the trends I can get through, but I'll make sure I leave some time as well in case you have any questions. So let's start off with my first trend, which is coming up. I'm going to go through these quite quickly, but it gives you an idea of some of the exciting things that are going on in marketing. So we've all heard of the metaverse. This is Facebook's idea to get into the virtual reality, artificial reality world. And if you look at the amount of information that's been shared about metaverse, we'd be thinking about, wow, we're all going to be living, working, and breathing in the metaverse. But have we? It is stuttered a little bit. So for my next slide, will explain. We had a huge promise with the metaverse, with the immersive experience. And actually, the reality is that it's not actually going anywhere. Consumers have not dived in to the metaverse as we expected them to have done. Some of the areas on the metaverse have got very small numbers, 38 active daily users, on some of the areas like Decentraland. So all I would say is it looks like, whilst there's some great ways for us to use artificial reality and augmented reality, then it doesn't look like they've actually got it right with the metaverse at the moment. My next slide talks about something called super apps. Now, in Asia, in Hong Kong, particularly say in places like China and other Asian countries, you'll be very aware of what a super app is. But a super app's an all-in-one mobile application which effectively creates its own ecosystem that enables you to do all sorts of things in one place. Book trains, pay for bills, check timetables, book holidays, and play games, do your mapping, and all sorts of things in one single app. These are dominant in places in Asia and the Middle East, but they are non-existent in Europe and the USA. And I'll go on to the next slide. This is going to be a trend that will eventually get around the world. The reason why in Europe and in the USA it's not been particularly strong is because the regulations in those regions prevent organizations bringing together different things to create a super app. However, you'll know this chap, I'm sure, who's changed Twitter to X, that Elon has aspirations to create a super app. Now, he would be allowed to do that with X because it's not big enough to fall foul of some of the regulatory frameworks. So it's taken a long time, but we'll expect to see super apps emerging. So your information, your insight that you've got will be very useful to companies around the world. Okay, my next slide is the rapid move to digital. One thing I would say is that Really now, every single organization is a digital organization. Whether they believe they are or not, they are a digital organization. If you think the first thing you do, if you hear of a new organization, a new product, a new service, you will look for it either in social media, you will look for it from influencers, or you look for it online. So every organization, and they're going through huge digital transformation now. And I've got some examples here of kind of things which you should look for. I particularly picked on retail. So these are key things. Emerging business models. So business model means the way we do things. And there are brand new business models, things like memberships or subscriptions. And yourself, if you add up how many subscriptions you've got, maybe you've got them for phones, for Wi-Fi, for online entertainment, for clubs that you belong to, you'll find that we all have got a lot of subscriptions. That's a big thing for digital transformation. Direct to consumer is another new one. Traditionally, we would always go and shop in stores, but now we're buying more things direct from organizations. And the new commerce, the all-in-one super apps. And then on the right-hand side, I've got expanding channels. And these two things are really big in Asia and are slow to catch on around the world. Social commerce, when we go to social channels and to buy products, to share ideas about products, and then also live selling. And my next two slides are going to quickly show some of those. So here we go on retail transformation. I've got Shopee live there, so that could be Shopee, AliExpress, many of those which have got live selling. I've got products here like Spoke, which kind of gives you bespoke clothes, watch straps, and all sorts of things. Nike already believe that most of their sales are going to come from online direct. It will overtake retail stores owned by other people. Direct toilet rolls down there at the bottom from a sustainable company, and then also food which is directly delivered each week, ready for you to be able to prepare. So some really good examples. I always say to organizations when they're thinking about how do we transform, start to think like a disruptor. For example, what would real estate by Netflix look like? What would healthcare by Amazon look like? Or what would a telecoms industry by Airbnb look like? Very different. It's a good way for you to come up with new ideas. So my next slide talks about dark social media, maybe a phrase that you've never heard before. But the truth is that most of the time when we're talking about social media in marketing, we're talking about public social media. But the truth is, most of us share information on messaging apps, which companies don't even know what we're saying. And the next slide shows you the most used social media platforms in Hong Kong. And as you can see, the number one is a messaging app. Nearly 80%, of social media users in Hong Kong are using WhatsApp. And then you can see where WeChat, Facebook Messenger as well, very close on those top used lists. And here's a really interesting slide. When we ask people about where do they share information, so where do you share information? Can I get the next slide up? Thank you. Consumers tell us that 84% of what they share are in dark social media spaces. So they're in messaging apps like WhatsApp, like WeChat and Messenger. They are not in public areas that we can see. However, 90% of what brands spend is actually on public platforms. So we're saying to organizations, they should be focusing more on how can they get their brand shared in these chat areas, which are far more successful. And later on, after you finish this, have a look through any of your chats and see where people are recommending places to eat, films to watch, clothes to buy, things to do. They're sharing information in those places, but brands don't know that it's actually happening. My next slide is about big data. And what I would say is that there's more data generated in the last 2 years than the entire history of mankind. Now, most brands are not using big data. They're using about 3.4 sources on average. And my next slide gives a single piece of recommendation, which I always give. And that is just to calm down, keep calm. It's only big data. Don't be scared of it. And I say to organizations and us as marketers, add another source. Don't think about having to add another 4, 5, 6 sources. Just take another thing. And it might be that you're going to take transactions. So maybe you're looking at your sales, but you start looking at where it's coming from, the location of where your customers are. It could be search, for example. There's a whole host of things there, but I just recommend organizations to take one more data set rather than a big data set. My next slide of trends is short form video. And you will all be living with this now. And I call this the attention economy. So we know that getting people's attention now is harder than ever before. Many people don't want to watch 4, 5, 6 minute long videos when it comes to brand messages. And you can see that short form videos, particularly driven from TikTok type channels, but you see it also on LinkedIn, sorry, not LinkedIn, on Instagram as well. Actually, there are short form videos on LinkedIn too, but you can see the way that Reels have gone throughout social media that is actually being very successful at getting brand messages. And there's some great research that now says 6-second adverts can also be highly effective. So what we say here is when we're creating content, we should have what we call atomization, break down our big ideas into smaller ideas. Okay, so my next slide is about influencer marketing. Okay, now quite often people will say, oh, influencer marketing, it's dead. It's not that successful. I don't follow influencers. But the truth is, they're not dead. They're extremely good way of sharing information with your consumers. And I think if we change the name to content creators, that they're good at creating content and which our consumers use. Now, if you do a module with us, if you do a program with us, we cover in depth on influencer marketing and how to use it the best way. But they're great at reaching consumers better than companies can as well. And you can see here 75% of marketers say they are using influencers and they're spending about 30 billion US dollars a year, so a huge amount of money. So I've got next a couple of slides. I'm going to just show you very quickly some examples of what I call user-generated content, which is also a big trend. Apologize about this funny video on the side. And these are examples where consumers have generated content online and it's had a massive impact to organizations with them doing very little. So this is a UK brand called Mochi Balls, Little Moon's Mochi Balls. So you'll know Mochi Balls from Japan. They launched in 2015. They didn't sell very many. They're a small business, sold in freezers and some retailers. In January 21, there was a TikTok challenge during lockdown where it challenged people to go into stores and find them. And there's all sorts of funny videos of people trying to get them and fighting over them in stores and doing all sorts of silly things. They had 101 million views. Their sales increased by 1,300% to a turnover of about 500 million Hong Kong dollars. And now they've invested about 35 million Hong Kong dollars in a new factory and 150 new jobs. And they did nothing. They did nothing at all. But as marketers, we need to encourage other consumers to do this user-generated content for us. And my next slide is another great example. It's from the UK as well. And it's a brand of cleaning product called The Pink Stuff. And if you look across like UK-oriented social media channels, there are thousands of places on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook where people are just sharing what they're doing with the various products from this Pink Stuff. And Pink Stuff is a really small business, but now it's started to overtake big brands from Unilever and Reckitt Benckiser. And again, they've done nothing. Okay, I'll be very quick through my last 2 slides, and then we'll be able to pass over to you for some questions. I talked briefly beforehand about augmented reality and virtual reality. It's been slow to take off, but most organizations, most marketers think that there's going to be something here for the future, but perhaps we're just very close now with technology to be able to provide some really useful products. But in your projects that you're doing, you can think about how can I use AR or VR in my marketing? And the next slide I've got just shows a couple of examples. So this is one called Exesto, and it enables you to 3D effectively scan your feet just from an app. And then they have a huge database of shoes and shoe sizes, and they can tell you the exact shoe size that you would need by brand. So if you say, I want Nike running shoes, we'll scan your feet and it will tell you what size you need of the different Nike running shoes. So you can buy them online comfortably, knowing that they're going to turn up and fit you. Okay, so that covers some of the key trends that I wanted to talk about today. I spent a lot of time talking about AI for you because I know that that is something that people are questioning. So I'm hoping you found this really useful. All I would say is that you need to be prepared. And that's why you would do a course with us, a program with us at Hull University Business School with HKU Space, because we ensure that you're equipped to deal with some of these challenges which I've covered today. Okay, so I have about 10 minutes or so just to answer any questions if anybody has any. Thank you. Okay, so I've got a question already. I've got one here, so I think you can put them in the chat and we should be able to see them, or on YouTube. So I've got, as AI is developing very fast pace, how we can ensure that we'd have updated AI knowledge for our jobs? It's a really good question. Because there isn't a day that goes by that I don't learn something new or we see something new about AI. All I would say is marketing always changes. So my whole career, there's been something new all of the time. And the key thing is that you should keep a keen eye and a thirst for knowledge just to be keeping update all of the time. But what you will know is that we will be embedding AI tools and giving you the idea of how to use AI tools in different modules. So we've already looked at the program and said, right, where are we going to do it? But you're going to find that you're going to be having lots of different insights into artificial intelligence. But you are right. It will always update. It will always change. Some of the things that we thought were issues a few years ago are no longer issues as well. But what you can guarantee is that we will do our best to make sure that you've got some of the key skills that you need when you're going into interview that can share with your employees as well. So for example, now when you come in and do the marketing analytics, you'll be getting a lot of analytical skills that perhaps marketers aren't using. So you'll be able to talk about that in interviews, and they'll be really keen to hear your thoughts about using data and how you can analyze that to come up with really creative, new, big ideas. Okay, so I hope that's helped. What do you think about development of digital marketing in Chinese social media platforms? I think I touched on WeChat before, and WeChat's really interesting because if you look at the history of WeChat, when it started, it was a platform that was copying other platforms around the world, and then it evolved into this super app, which now is copied by apps around the world. And I think it's really interesting. I think that they use technology, like particularly WeChat, to give consumers the ability and the convenience of doing everything in one place. And I think that we do like that as consumers, to be able to go to one place to do things. And so it always comes down to, do you add value at a consumer level? If you add value that consumers really appreciate, then they're happy to use it. And that's why some of these platforms have been really successful. But one thing you'll notice is we've been talking about this quite a lot about the partnership we have with Hull University Business School and HKU Space, is that you'll be on an international program. And that means that we take the best ideas from around the world. So you won't just be getting a Western or an Eastern or a Middle Eastern view. We will take the very best ideas, because I always say that probably the best ideas are in a country outside of your own. And so you'll get the opportunity to think about some of these other platforms as well and see how they work. Okay. I hope that's been helpful. But I mean, I've been aware of these platforms for a long time. Even I know TikTok's not available in Hong Kong, but TikTok originated in China, and our Chinese students were talking about it before anyone had been aware of it in the world. So you get this opportunity in an international business school to get experiences from around the world. Okay. Do we have any other questions? No more at the moment. Okay. So we'll see if anybody else has a question at all about anything I've covered today, I'd be more than happy to answer it. Could be something about the program, something about studying with us, or about any of the trends. What I would say is that, the questions asked, how can we ensure we have the right knowledge, is that there's an expectation from organizations that because you're younger people and that you're using technology, that you will have some of the skills they're looking for. And that's not always true. Just because you're a passive user of a platform, you won't know how it works or how to get the best of it, or how to integrate consumer insight knowledge into what you're doing. And that's a key role for us, to be able to show you how to integrate different tools and get them to use together. But I would say the things I've talked about today, have a look at your own usage, have a look at the media that you're consuming, have a look what you listen to, watch, read, and the things that you don't, things you ignore, and start being more open and to the busy environment that you all live your lives in as well. And take an interest. What you'll find is on our program, we'll curate, tell you the places to go and get information, where to read, what podcasts and things like that to listen to. So you'll get opportunity to access all sorts of books and reports and studies that you won't be able to find, outside of the environment at HKU Space. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions, but it's been good to speak. Hopefully you have found this information useful, and you can, by all means, contact HKU Space with any other questions which you have, and I know they'll forward them to me as well. But if we don't have any more questions, shall we conclude the live stream, or should we wait for a couple more minutes? Okay. Great. So I've got the message saying nothing else coming through at the moment. So I will wrap up. Again, I hope that you found that really interesting. And please send through any other questions you have. And hopefully we'll look forward to welcoming you to Hull University Business School and HKU Space in the future. Thank you very much.